Hi, everyone. It's Rena Jadov, and we are chatting today about cancer and testing. And you know why? Because technology has come a long way, baby. We don't have the same tests that we used to have a long time back. And today, to tell us all about these amazing, new, fascinating tests, and oh, by the way, I've had one of them, is Dr. Leerin Keneally. Hi, Dr. C.
Hi, Rena. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, so tell us about testing for someone who has not yet been diagnosed, but who's really worried that they have cancer and they want.
Right. So that's a lot of people today because, as we know, we're living in a pandemic of cancer. One out of two men and
Mhm.
41% of females. And now it's the number one killer in children. So we all need to be made aware of cancer. And unfortunately, the news and the magazines and the publications really are not informing us of what we can do to find out if we have cancer.
Mhm.
So that's why we're doing this today. So I want everyone to know that right this second that we can figure out if someone has cancer, even if they're in year one of a 10-year disease.
Oh, that's amazing. That's such positive news because I know the earlier you catch it, the easier it is to treat.
Yes, the cure for cancer is prevention. The treatment for cancer is prevention. So anyway, so let's go through. So
Okay.
regular blood tests that you can do with any doctor would be a CRP, which is C-reactive protein,
Okay.
hemoglobin A1C, which is a reflection of your blood sugar over 90 days, and your DHEA level, which is your DHEA is your marker of stress, immune, and longevity. So that can be done with any conventional doctor anywhere. That can be ordered by yourself by direct labs. The other blood marker you could check is quantitative HCG. HCG is the marker of pregnancy, but it's also the blood marker of malignancy. So obviously, if you were pregnant, you could not check yourself. But if you were not pregnant, you could use the quantitative HCG. So that's something that simply can be done by yourself or by your conventional or integrative medical doctor. Now, the other blood test is called, so another blood test you can do called the cancer profile made by American Metabolic Laboratories that checks HCG in blood and urine. And it also detects the PHI, which is the enzyme of hypoxia, low oxygenation. It checks DHEA, which is your adrenal gland. It checks TSH, is your thyroid. It checks CEA, which is a non-specific marker for cancer, and it checks GGT, checking your liver. So that's another blood that tells us that you're fermenting, simmering cancer. The other blood test that we can do is called circulating tumor cells. If something is growing inside of you and it's a millimeter, that's a pencil line, it starts releasing circulating tumor cells. So even if you don't have a mass on a scan or an ultrasound, then you can check the blood test called the circulating tumor cells, CTCs. And we use a lab in Greece called RGCC. Now, there are labs all over the world that perform this test, but I will tell you that through my experience, RGCC is probably the most accurate lab in the country with about an 86.45% success rate. Okay, so those are the blood testing. There is another blood test that just recently came out called the IV gene. And the IV gene is a simple blood test. It's about $300 or $400. And it's a blood test that checks DNA biomarkers of cancer. So that also, so there's lots of tests, and I usually use a panoramic view. I never rely on one thing. Now,
Right.
there's other testing that you can do that is not blood testing. So that is a thermography for the breast. You can do thermography the entire body, but thermography for the breast. Women need to know that mammograms are not 100% accurate. They will tell you all the time at the end of the report that the patient, it will not detect every single pathology. So I always recommend an ultrasound and or a thermogram. So a thermogram is a thermal image of the breast, and cancer is a vascular problem. So it'll show up on the thermogram as a abnormal vascular problem. So the other thing is you can do is ultrasound. Ultrasound picks up lumps and bumps. It's a non-invasive test to determine if you have any masses anywhere in the body, breast, abdominal ultrasound. We can do a pelvic, we can do all kind of ultrasounds. You can always do CT scans, MRIs, and PET scans to determine if someone has cancer. So there's lots, but that's when it's big. From one cancer to tumor formation takes 10 years. So there's lots of years of opportunity to figure out if someone has cancer. Now, the other thing that I do is something called the Bioimmune Survey. It's based upon the work of Dr. Voll, V-O-L-L. He was a physicist and medical doctor who determined and measured the acupuncture points on your fingers and toes that correspond to every organ in your body. Now that is quantified in a machine called the BioMeridian, and that's been around, that information's been around for probably 70, 80, going on almost 80 years now. So it's all about to do with quantum physics and the bioenergy of the body, very much like an EKG and an EEG. So there's so many ways, and we use multiple ways to see what the patient truly has. If you're not testing, you're guessing. So it's always, these are all available now today. And unfortunately, the doctor needs to be schooled in the different testing to know how to interpret everything. So again, we want all of our listeners to know that yes, information has changed, technology changed, information is available for us. It just takes a long time for everybody to get up to speed with these new testing and these new evaluatory methods.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because as you know, I had colon cancer when I was 35, and I'm always wondering if it's brewing. So for someone like me to be able to come into your clinic and get tested and find out that there's nothing brewing was the best night of sleep I had in a long time. So I just want to share my own personal experience of having been tested through your clinic for this. So for someone who has medical insurance, I think it's a lot easier. Are all these tests covered by insurance, or only some of them?
Some of them are and some of them aren't, but none of the tests are that expensive. The regular tests that are covered by insurance, it should be fine, but even if it wasn't covered, there's not that much. But the other tests, the IVgene, like I said, is $300 to $400. The Bioimmune Survey is only $250, which I think is probably the most invaluable information. The cancer profile is about $450. So the circulating tumor cell from Greece is $500. But I will tell you that knowing what you have is way more relieving than not knowing.
Absolutely.
And you can't change something you don't know about.
Absolutely. And you can't treat something you don't know you have. And you know, back to the earlier it's caught, it's completely curable at this point. So like my stage 1, they just did some surgery and that was it. So the sooner you catch it, the better it is.
Right.
Instead of kind of keeping your eyes closed and hoping that it's not there until it's like stage 4, and now you've got yourself into a really deep ditch. So these are some good, how can someone find out if their doctor is going to test them? Do they just ask the doctor, hey, can you do these tests? Or is there any other way to find the right doctor who can test you?
Yes, well, you can ask your doctor, just say, look, I was reading, I want to do these 3 tests. Will you order them for me? I think most doctors would be agreeable. And then you want a doctor who is interested in preventing cancer. He or she will be more interested. Unfortunately, a conventional doctor is kind of doing the same thing they did 20 years ago. So, and if they're not teaching all of this information in the medical schools, like for example, they've just now decided to teach nutrition and biochemistry of food in the schools now, and we're in 2018, and this is not new information.
Yeah.
So we can't rely on that. So we have to, the doctors can go to conferences. You want a doctor who is concerned about prevention as opposed to treatment of an illness. So I think that would be, there are multiple organizations we'll talk about later that are available for patients to look at, to find doctors who you know really know about this. And a lot of it can be done over the phone and ordered over the phone.
That's great to know. So of all the tests you mentioned, if you had to just pick 3, which would those 3 be?
Well, if I had to pick one,
yes,
it would be the Bioimmune Survey.
Okay.
I've been doing it for 19 years, so I know how accurate it is.
Wow.
The second thing probably would be the circulating tumor cell test done by RGCC. And then, of course, the routine blood testing that I mentioned earlier that any doctor can order would be very invaluable.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. C. And for the rest of you, if you join the Cancer Boot Camp, the Beat Cancer Boot Camp with Dr. C, then of course you'll have access to a lot more information and question and answers with Dr. C during the boot camp. So check out the information about the boot camp as well. And we hope you will get some testing done to have that wonderful sleep at night. And we'll see you on another one of these episodes. Stay smiling.